Would you please rise for the pledge? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this regularly scheduled meeting of Bowling Green City Council. Kay, would you please begin by calling the roll?
Osbacher.
Here.
Gordon.
Here.
Harold.
Here.
Jeffers.
Here.
Robinette.
Here.
Roland. Here. Zanfordino.
Here.
The minutes from the meeting that was held on May 21st, 2018 were presented to council prior to this meeting. Are there any corrections or additions to these minutes? Seeing none, is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. The motion passes. The minutes are approved as presented. Kay, do we have correspondence this evening?
I have no correspondence.
Thank you. We have, due to a last-minute development, we have no special recognition, so we will move forward to lobby visitation. Kay, has anyone signed up for lobby visitation this evening?
Yes, we have one person, Francis Scrucci.
Good evening, Superintendent.
Good evening. Francis Scrucci, 1620 Muirfield, but I'm here on behalf of the Bowling Green City Schools Board of Education. We have set a date for our community task force organizational meeting for June 25th. That's Monday, June 25th at 6:30 p.m. at the Performing Arts Center. And as you know, our bond issue failed for the second time, and our board is committed to finding out what our community will support. And so that'll be the first step, and it's going to be turned over to our community. So I would encourage city council members and community members to be part of that, because this is the community that you live in, and hopefully people will give us some guidance as to what they will support going forward. So short and sweet. And I promised Joe that I would say, Joe Fawcett's a great guy.
I hope you got paid for that.
Yes.
We won't argue that point. We think he's a great guy, too. And thank you for that information, sir. On behalf of the council, I know that we've all been supportive of your efforts in the past, and we would encourage community members to consider attending that very important meeting so we can continue that important community conversation.
That's all I have.
Very good, thank you. We move on to the introduction of new legislation.
Mr. President,
Mr. Jeffers.
I have two ordinances. First, an ordinance authorizing the municipal administrator to advertise for bids and enter into a contract or contracts for professional cleaning services for city-owned buildings. And an ordinance amending and adopting Section 35.70 of the codified ordinances of the City of Bowling Green, Ohio, regarding city fees and fees charged for services and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Bruce.
Mr. President,
Mr. Zanfordino.
from the Transportation and Safety Committee, we have an ordinance granting easements to Columbia Gas of Ohio Incorporated for the Columbia Gas Bowling Green Streetscape project and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, John.
Mr. President,
Mr. Gordon.
from the Community Improvement Committee, I have a resolution authorizing the filing of a proposal and/or an application with the Ohio Department of Transportation for grants through the U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Transit Administration as authorized under federal transit laws as codified 49 U.S.C. Section 5311, financial assistance for other than urbanized areas and funds available from the Ohio Public Transportation Grant Program, executing a contract or grant for the fiscal year 2019 Ohio Elderly and Disabled Transit Fare Assistance Program, and 5339 and/or 5311, funding for capital and/or operating assistance, and executing a contract with the Ohio Department of Transportation upon grant proposal and/or application approval.
Thank you, Daniel. Moving on to our official reports. Mayor Edwards.
Thank you very much. If I seem a little bit frustrated or as L.V. Perkins, the late L.V. Perkins, who he dearly loved. He would say he was frustrated. L.V. always had a way with words. And, anyway, and for those of you who knew L.V. really well, like I did, you can appreciate why he twisted some words around and would have a little fun with them at times and so forth. But in any event, I am a little flustered. And because we were expecting a celebrity guest to be on hand this evening. And somehow, some way, things got a little bollocksed up. And we thought that our celebrity guest was going to be all right for tonight, but he had it down for the 11th of June. And that won't work for us because we don't have a council meeting unless you declare some special council meeting in that. In any event, just to cut to the quick on this, and we will arrange for Jerry Anderson with his wife Terry to come before City Council as soon as we possibly can, because I will be declaring, and I trust with your support and enthusiastic support, Jerry Anderson Day in Bowling Green on Friday, June 15th, because that will be Jerry's last day at WTOL Channel 11 after 44 years in the broadcast industry. It all started right here in Bowling Green in 1974. And when he went to work with WFOB, the former radio station that had a place right downtown, actually then he was there for a number of years and of course, working with out on campus as well. But it paved the way for Dave Horger, because when Jerry took a job in Toledo, then Dave Horger, and he had that long run there and so forth. In any event, Jerry has been totally unselfish, as we all know. I mean, how many community groups he's helped throughout Northwest Ohio in Toledo, but especially in his hometown here. And with the Bowling Green Parks and Recreation Foundation, the BG Little League Baseball, the Black Swamp Arts Festival, and you could go on and on and on, where he has served either as a celebrity auctioneer or a master of ceremonies. And he's been just totally amazing in his support of this community. And he's covered presidential inaugurations, visit by Pope John II, major national news stories. He won, as we all know, that he's earned 7 Emmys, 2 Edward R. Murrow Awards, 2 Crystal Awards of Excellence, and most recently his induction into the Ohio Associated Press Hall of Fame. So there's any number of reasons, and we will work this out. But in any event, his last day will be June 15th, Friday, and so I'll issue this and so forth, and we'll have a little fun with it when we can get him here. And speaking of fun, I just want to thank you all for your participation. And Daniel, we were sorry we missed you there, and Mike, but on Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock there, somehow we lucked out with the weather, because we no sooner finished the ceremony and probably about 15 minutes afterwards, and there was a major downpour there. But it was a wonderful occasion, very well attended, and it was great fun. And we're grateful to Tom and Diane Klein for their generous gift of, as we know, of taking care of the cost of the gazebo. There were other costs there related to the sidewalks and so forth that came from a different source and different gifts and so forth. But the gazebo itself, a $50,000, very, very thoughtful gift that Tom and Diane did in honor of their parents. And Gloria Davis was there. She's the one living parent. She's 92. And so it was a very special occasion for the Klein family and the Davis family. And it was just, it was great fun. And with the help, Mr. Superintendent, your students, the jazz band there, and also then the Madrigal Singers just did a superb job. I know you were there, but you had to leave early in the program there. But it was a wonderful occasion on all fronts. So thank you for your support throughout this whole process. As Larry Weiss said, and Clint, we missed you, and but Larry did a good job, and you said there, and as you know he would do, and but at the very end he said more to come in 2019. And Sharon Hanna keeps sharing good news with us, and we're just now going ahead with really the public fundraising effort and so forth. But we're almost about 70% of the goal of $450,000 already. So it's a great story all the way around, and you've been wonderfully supportive and understanding of this whole somewhat protracted process at the ups and downs and the bobbing and weaving and so forth on it. But it's been great fun. And with that, I just want to say Wendy Chambers is not here tonight, I don't believe, but she ought to be, as of course, with Earlene and Sue and the others and Mary with Four Corners. Not only has Four Corners played a strong support role in the whole Worcester Green development, and especially Mary Henkelman and the Downtown Foundation Board that you'll be hearing more about in the future, because they have been the gift receiving arm for all the gifts that have come in. But what I started to say too is that all of you should feel at Four Corners especially good, because what you did not only in helping for Bowling Green to become one of the best hometowns in Ohio, that we all share in that great sense of pride and joy, but also we've been getting all kinds of national attention here because of our BGSU men's hockey program, and the alums from that program are now competing for the Stanley Cup. And with George McPhee in Las Vegas and Brian McClellan in Washington, the Capitals, they're playing tonight. But two guys from Gulf, Ontario, that came here. Their coach was Jerry York, who's has won more games in intercollegiate hockey than any other coach in the United States ever, including 4 national championships, one right here in Bowling Green. But it's been great fun to tune in and get to see all this recognition of Bowling Green as a community, because Doc Enright, the famous hockey announcer, as a graduate, as his doctorate from Bowling Green, he's been talking about Bowling Green as a place to be, a community, and so forth. I know that George McPhee said it was the best 4 years of his life to be in Bowling Green, and how much this means to the community and how much he appreciated community support. I know Brian probably feels the same way. And then Ryan Carpenter, one of the star players on the Las Vegas team, was just playing out here about 4 or 5 years ago. So now he's making probably, we won't know, it'll make us all shed tears. But in any event, that concludes my report, and I appreciate it. And thanks for your understanding about Jerry Anderson. I probably need to blame myself more than anyone else. So.
No problem. Are there questions for Mayor Edwards? Very good. Thank you, sir. We have our Assistant Municipal Administrator, Mr. Fawcett, with us this evening. Are there questions for Joe? Thank you. Planning Director Heather Saylor is unable to be with us today, this evening. Parks and Recreation Director, Ms. Otley.
Just very quickly, summer is underway. So thank you, Mayor, for being our celebrity server at the first lunch in the park last Friday. Just a couple reminders. All the camps started this week, so that's underway. But this Friday is I was going to say 3rd annual, but it might be 4th annual. Lose track after a while. But Art in the Park at Simpson Garden Park from 5 to 7. That is always very popular. So I would advise that if you live nearby or even somewhere far away, walk, bike, or if there is not enough parking in the Simpson building parking lot, you can park at the hospital and work your way through Simpson Garden Park the other way, because we do usually get a good crowd depending on the weather. And this Sunday starts, Friday we'll have another lunch in the park, but it's number 2. But this Sunday starts our first in our Concert in the Park series, and that is the Bowling Green Area Community Band. So pretty much all of Bowling Green will be there, so you need to come watch as well. And other than that's all I have. But again, summer's in full swing. The pool kicked off with some very nice hot weather, so more of a stretch of 90-degree days than we had all last summer in a row. So that was good for the pool. You did predict right, yes. Thank you. So keep predicting those things, all right? And I said, oh, no, it's going to be cold and rainy, and I was hoping I would jinx myself, and I did. So there you go. We'll work in tandem there.
Are there questions for Kristen?
Thanks.
Thank you. City Attorney, Mr. Marsh.
It's not law, but once again, Oak Grove Cemetery looked amazing over the holiday weekend. Really did.
Thanks for bringing that up. We always appreciate the efforts of the public works employees that are responsible for maintaining that. So, yes, I would agree. They always do a great job. Other questions for Mr. Marsh? Thank you. Utilities Director, Mr. O'Connell, is unable to be with us this evening. Public Works Director, Mr. Kraft.
Thanks, Mike, for reminding us about Oak Grove. The guys do a lot of work over there to get it ready, and kind of the time of year where you just get done mowing and you got to start all over again. So it takes a lot of effort to do that. So appreciate that. But I don't have a whole lot to say tonight other than the Columbia Gas project did start off today. A slow start on Clay Street, and they'll be working from Clay down onto Main Street, heading towards downtown, and be a summer of construction barrels with them, and hopefully get it done before the students get back in August. So we'll see how it goes by the end of the summer. So, and I understand Mr. Robinette may have a question for me.
I do. I had some inquiry and I from citizens, and I thought it might be appropriate if you could just a little background on the binder, how we got to where we are with brush pickup schedule. The concern I received about the inability to have brush picked up, that was specific, but it raises the larger issue, and maybe just a couple reminder of how we got where we are.
Sure. Long ago, we used to always have one in the spring and the fall. And about in 2009, I think the city sought a tax increase, and as a result of it not passing, we reduced, trying to save some money in the budget, we reduced it down to one in the fall. So for probably 5, 6, 7 years, we've had one in the fall, and we always did that just prior to the leaf collection, to give people a way to get rid of their brush and ahead of the leaf collection, because you don't want those mixed together. It really was a hardship for people in the spring, because that's when people want to get out and clean up their yards, that sort of thing. So then along comes the refuse fee, and we talked internally about what can we do to kind of do things differently, thinking a little bit outside the box. So not only did we increase the ability to have your large item collections, do those 5 items twice a year for free, we thought we could expand the brush collection to 4 times a year, and we thought the appropriate months would be April and May, spring cleanup. Give us time in June, July, and August to have those same crews go out and do 50-50 sour programs, crack sealing, street painting, a lot of the building maintenance we do in the summer gives us a break to do those sorts of things, and then get back to brush collection in September after the festival, and then again keep that one in October ahead of the leaf collection. So it works really well for people that call in, and we understand that this being the first year, that there's a little bit of a learning curve for that, for people to call in April and May. A lot of people in April was just kind of a bad month, the way the weather was this April. So May, we had like 320 locations and got that done in 5 days. But if you missed April and May, what we have to tell people is hang on to it for 3 months. It's better than it was when you used to tell them a whole year. And we'll come back in September and get it in September and or October. I think there's some people probably are going to call up all 4 times. And there's some people that may have been hanging on to it for quite a long time until they kind of get that pile whittled down. They'll get back into a normal routine where after several years, I think it'll just be, maybe they use half of them in a year. So it's not very friendly to tell people to hang on to it for 3 months, because if it's a big pile, they have to store it somewhere. Not everybody has a pickup truck or wants to go out to the landfill. And it's not really pleasant either to tell them to, hire a contractor, have them take it out. But that's kind of where we are. It's we'll come back around in the fall. If you can hang on to it, just set it at the curb, call us. We'll come back out and get it then. And we're hoping that the 4 times people kind of see that as a positive movement compared to where we've been with going down from 2 to 1, then back up to 4. That it's a service that they appreciate, and if they can hang on to it for that 3 months in the summer. A lot of times it's not really a big problem for people over the winter. Nobody really has a big deal over the winter waiting till spring, but it's that 3 times in the summer where maybe they want to get something cleaned up in their yard, and we're not there yet. So that's kind of short.
I got one call about that, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
And was there a lot of people wanting a June pickup? Or was
no, there was a few people that called in after the deadline, and we wanted to give our guys the routing. Because if you recall, this collection is street specific. Mm-hmm. So we give the guys the routes in each ward. So if somebody called up at the last minute, it kind of threw a monkey wrench into the scheme of how we're going to have people go around and pick it up. So we'd tell them wait. And most people sure got it, learning the new system. A few people didn't like being told they had to wait 3 months, but we try to do the best we can at explaining the system. And I think as the system gets years roll along, I think it'll become more second nature to them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate the explanation.
Yep. Appreciate it.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Kraft?
Well, Brian, while we got you on that subject, remind us how the large trash collection works at this time with our revisions.
Yeah, every calendar year, every address that is served by our city refuse collection is eligible for two times a year. We will come and get 5 items at no cost. If you have a mattress and a box spring amongst those items, you still have to pay the $25 for the first item and $15 for the second, because we have the fee at the landfill. If you need a third collection in that year, it's just like it used to be. It's $25 for the first item and $15 thereafter. One thing we have that a lot of people don't know, if you're cleaning out a garage or a basement and you just have a lot of stuff, maybe it's not really even big stuff, we'll bring a dumpster just like the ones out here in the parking lot. I think it's like 3.5, 4 yards. We'll drop that off for prepaid $60 and we'll bring it. You fill it up. We take a landfill, dump it for $60. We've had people that use that and then they like it so well, they've come back 2 or 3 times consecutively and keep using it. So what we found is it's a lot of places where maybe, mom and dad have passed away and a child comes back to take care of the house and they just have to get rid of some stuff. And they don't really want a big construction dumpster in their driveway. And this dumpster, you can move it, by yourself, just pushing it around and fill it. So that's another way of getting rid of those things. But right now, we just have the 2 free for 5 items every year, and then every January 1, that resets to start all over again.
And boy, I'm really forgetting my details tonight, but are those all at a certain time? So will the 2 free be, or they can be?
Call any time of the year.
Anytime.
Yep. And the nice thing about it is we put that on our calendar, and the guys are already out picking up the downtown trash on Mondays and Fridays from the trash receptacles. Then we hand them that list, and they go out. The nice thing about this is compared to driving all around town, wasting fuel and looking for the trash, they know exactly where the address is, and they can pick it up and move on to the next thing instead of just meandering around town, wasting fuel and wasting time. So it worked out really well.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, thank you.
That concludes our official reports for this evening. Do we have any council committee reports? I would just mention a scheduling note. At our last meeting, we discussed the possibility of scheduling a committee of the whole meeting prior to our next meeting, which would be June 18th.
June 18th.
Yeah, June 18th, in order for council to discuss the recommendations from the Charter Review Committee that we would be voting on that evening. We had not yet determined the time of that meeting, so I would like to announce this evening that meeting will take place prior to our meeting on June 18th, beginning at 6 o'clock. The Committee of the Whole meeting will meet in these chambers to discuss the recommendations from the Charter Review Commission. Do we have additional council committee reports?
Just a question, Mr. President. The timeline on the charter ordinances to get them, when do we have to have them approved in order to get them to the Board of Elections? What's our deadline?
July 8th, I believe. Did you have to have it?
Your last action, the filing deadline's August 4, I believe.
The first meeting in July.
So you're on time, actually, you're 1 ahead.
I think we're one meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move on to the reading of legislation, please.
Legislation for first reading. Resolution number 3703 for first reading. Resolution authorizing the filing of a proposal and/or application with the Ohio Department of Transportation for grants through the U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Transit Administration as authorized under federal transit laws as codified 49 U.S.C. Section 5311, financial assistance for other than urbanized areas and funds available from the Ohio Public Transportation Grant Program, executing a contract or grant for the fiscal year 2019 Ohio Elderly and Disabled Transit Fare Assistance Program, and 5339 and/or 5311 funding for capital and/or operating assistance and executing a contract with the Ohio Department of Transportation upon grant proposal and/or application approval.
Mr. President, I just want to point out the obvious that both Daniel and Kay did an exceptional job reading that very lengthy resolution.
Thank you, Bill.
You'll get to hear it 2 more times.
I would just like to say I've read it about 8 times, and I'm glad I don't have to do it anymore. Never was smooth.
Ordinance number 8692 for first reading. Ordinance authorizing the municipal administrator to advertise for bids and enter into a contract or contracts for professional cleaning services for city-owned buildings. Ordinance number 8693 for first reading. Ordinance amending and adopting Section 35.70 of the codified ordinances of the City of Bowling Green, Ohio, regarding city fees and fees charged for services and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President,
Mr. Jeffers.
I move that we give ordinance 8693 its second and third reading.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Kay, would you please call the roll?
Gordon,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Jeffers,
Yes.
Robinette,
Yes.
Roland,
Yes.
Zanfordino,
Yes.
Osbacher.
Yes. The motion passes. The rules are suspended for ordinance 8693.
Ordinance number 8693 for second and third reading. Ordinance amending and adopting Section 35.70 of the codified ordinances of the City of Bowling Green, Ohio, regarding city fees and fees charged for services and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President,
Mr. Jeffers.
I move that we add the emergency clause to ordinance 8693.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Kay, would you please call the roll?
Harold,
Yes.
Jeffers,
Yes.
Robinette,
Yes.
Roland,
Yes.
Zanfordino,
Yes.
Osbacher.
Yes.
Gordon.
Yes.
The motion passes. The emergency clause is approved for ordinance 8693.
Mr. President,
Mr. Jeffers.
I move that we adopt ordinance 8693.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Sure, this is for the fees that go along with mobile food vendors. And since we have another ordinance on the table to complete tonight, that we just wanted to add these fees in at the same time.
Thank you. Kay, would you please call the roll?
Jeffers,
Yes.
Robinette,
Yes.
Roland,
Yes.
Zanfordino,
Yes.
Osbacher.
Yes.
Gordon,
Yes.
Harold.
Yes.
The motion passes. Ordinance 8693 is adopted.
Ordinance number 8694 for first reading. Ordinance granting easements to Columbia Gas of Ohio Incorporated for the Columbia Gas Bowling Green Streetscape project and declaring an emergency. Legislation for second reading. Ordinance number 8685 for second reading. Ordinance authorizing the municipal administrator to enter into a contract with Premier National Staffing for temporary staffing services. Ordinance number 8686 for second reading. Ordinance authorizing the utilities director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract or contracts for lime sludge disposal services for the water treatment plant. Ordinance number 8687 for second reading. Ordinance authorizing the utilities director to purchase software upgrades from Aclara for the TWAX automated meter reading system. Ordinance number 8688 for second reading. Ordinance providing for the submission of an amendment to Article 2, Section 2.03 of the Municipal Charter of the City of Bowling Green concerning vacancies.
Mr. President,
Mr. Robinette.
concerning this particular ordinance, and I know our timeline, we have some time, but I wanted to bring up, I've been studying this, and I had a conversation with our city attorney as well. The current language that the commission reviewed, the current language in the charter on this issue, was put in place by those who drafted it to establish a procedure that was different than the Ohio Revised Code. In other words, the Ohio Revised Code is the default law of the land until and unless the code changes it. The proposed amendment seeks to return the procedures used for filling council vacancies back to the default position of the Ohio Revised Code. That's what the language does. And it seems to me, after I was studying this for a while and talking with Mr. Marsh, that that's extremely redundant. And to get to the same end, returning the charter to the default position of the Ohio Revised Code could simply be achieved by rescinding this section of the charter, by repealing it. You get to the exact same place, if I understand the commission's intent. So rather than adding language to take us back to where we would have been had the initial language not been there in the first place, repealing the entire section gets us exactly to the same place in a more efficient manner, in my view. So I bring that up now because we have some time if everyone's in agreement, or if we think that's an appropriate step. But I think that we can get to where the commission wants us to be by repealing current language, and that's it. The same result occurs. The vacancies would be filled in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code, just as the proposed language says, but we don't need language to tell us to follow the Ohio law. That's what we do anyway.
Okay, Greg, thanks for bringing that to attention.
Question. If we just repeal it, it doesn't go on the ballot.
Yeah, it has to. Any change to the charter still is a ballot.
It doesn't go on the ballot then. So how do we know the public supports it?
Instead of this ordinance, it would be an ordinance to repeal section 2.03.
But we wouldn't do that until after people had voted on it?
No, they would have to vote on that.
How do we know the public wants it that way? They don't vote on it.
That's how you would find out. No, you would put that issue on the ballot.
You would put that on the ballot. I'm sorry.
In lieu of an amendment to
Okay.
the language, whatever the appropriate language is,
standalone.
repeal section
Yeah, a standalone.
2.03 would be the language. And in my
Okay.
view, it gets us to exactly the same place the commission wanted us to be. That's all I was bringing up.
Yeah, okay, I see it now.
Wouldn't there be an issue, though, if the Ohio Revised Code changed with this issue?
No, because the proposed language says follow the Ohio Revised Code, so it's going to follow the Ohio Revised Code.
Right, but like, do we want to follow the revised code because we just want to go with whatever the revised code says, or because we like what it currently says in the revised code?
But the proposed charter amendment says follow the revised code. That's Greg's point. So you would still be there if the revised code changed and you didn't like it. I guess you could amend the charter again.
Okay.
But you're still going to be there either way.
I think what Daniel might be alluding to is there is another option, which would be to mirror the current Ohio Revised Code in our charter. That way, if it as an appendix. Well, you know, I'm not adverse to lengthy discourse. But anyway.
Mike, could you come to the microphone? Mike, could you come to the, because
Is that what you were
when I
thinking?
do the minutes, I can't hear you from over there. Thank you.
1438 kind of. It's where there's a great big hole about to be dug. Yeah, Daniel, what Mr. Robinette is talking about is the language before you says follow the revised code.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why there wouldn't be any difference. Yeah.
So there's three options. One, keep it the way it is, which has a section of the charter that says we're going to follow the Ohio Revised Code. Make the change that Greg alluded to, which is, well, that's if we leave it completely out, that's what it defaults to. And then a third option, which would be, well, if we like the current revised code, throw 3 pages in. And then fourth would be do nothing.
Well, we're doing something. We had an ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
And I strongly disagree with the idea of adding, first of all, the commission go that route completely. Because follow Ohio law, citizens of Ohio don't or any sort.
No, Greg, I I applaud your attention to detail and making changes to make things clearer.
In any case, that's my thought.
Well, thanks for bringing it to our attention. Perhaps you and I can get together after this meeting and we can figure out a way to communicate these potential approaches, and we can finalize this discussion prior to, or during our committee of the whole meeting.
Right, and that's why I wanted to bring it up now, so that if we're going to make any changes, we still have the time necessary to act on it and meet the Board of Election deadline.
Right. Great. Thank you.
Ordinance number 8689 for second reading. Ordinance providing for the submission of an amendment to Article 6, Section 6.09 of the Municipal Charter of the City of Bowling Green concerning Department of Planning. Ordinance number 8690 for second reading. Ordinance providing for the submission of an amendment to Article 7, Section 7.01 of the Municipal Charter of the City of Bowling Green concerning Civil Service Commission. Ordinance number 8691 for second reading. Ordinance providing for the submission of an amendment to Article 9, Section 9.02 of the Municipal Charter of the City of Bowling Green concerning amendment to charter.
Mr. President,
Mr. Harold.
in keeping with the spirit of trying to clarify things, last meeting, I brought up that it was my opinion that at least every 10 years, a charter review committee consisting of residents of the city of Bowling Green shall be appointed by the mayor, et cetera. That the at least every 10 years from a numerical standpoint would mean that it would have to be 10 or more years between charter reviews. And there was a brief discussion that involved donuts. We have cookies tonight. And after that meeting, I had a chance to reflect and send out a not lengthy by relative terms email to council outlining a number of different reasons why if it is ambiguous, adding one word would bring us clarity. I also realized that this might be just my own perspective. So as I noted in the email, I talked with a colleague at work, and we analyzed it, because that is kind of what we do at our jobs, is look at attention to detail and definitions. And then on Sunday, I met with a retired university English professor who's an accomplished author, and talked to him about it. And actually, while we were talking, he had a couple neighbors stop by, and they got involved in the conversation. And it was our consensus, unanimous, that it was at best ambiguous. And if we added a word, one word, which is a far less change than what Greg espoused, is at least once every 10 years, that would add the clarity that we're talking about now, frequency instead of number of years, and it would meet the intent of the Charter Review Committee at a very small cost of adding one word, and it would make it clearer. I talked to the city attorney about it today, and I believe the city attorney and the administration does not see a problem with that. They can certainly correct me if I'm wrong. And so to me, if it doesn't make it worse and it makes it better, a clearer clarion call for the voters, then I would think that that would be beneficial. That's part of our responsibility, is to make sure that whatever comes up, puts on the ballot, is clear. So since we do have a council committee meeting as a whole about this on the before the next meeting, I'll not advance a motion to amend by adding that one word, but I would like you all to consider the trade-off. If you think there is no problem, that it's not ambiguous, but adding the one word doesn't make it worse, then it's a cost of like a motion. If you do think that there's a possibility that at least for some voters it might be ambiguous, then that should be reason enough to add the one word and have it more closely conform with the intent of the committee. So anyway, that's what I've got now. I'll appreciate it if you all would consider that before I end up making a motion at the next council meeting.
Thank you, Bill.
Mr. President, may I build on the conversation? Because I've looked at this one as well and listened to it. Of course, I was here at the last meeting, and to be honest with you, I do believe this whole discussion is somewhat unnecessary. And as Bill, as you pointed out, this isn't a math problem at the last meeting. It's an issue of legal lexicography. for which a legal opinion is appropriate, and as the city attorney, Mr. Marsh is qualified to offer such. Not only did he draft the legislation, but he also offered his opinion that the proposed language, at least every 10 years, is not ambiguous. It's the opinion of the attorney. That is also my legal. The phrase "at least every blank months" or blank years appears in our law. It appears in Supreme Court opinions and briefs. The phrase "at least every 10 years" has been used by the Supreme Court of the United States in briefs as recently as 2017 in redistricting issues. So all I say is we have the opinion of the author, city attorney. In addition, my opinion, my legal opinion, is the phrase is not ambiguous. Indeed, I think the phrase "at least every 10 years" and "at least once every 10 years" mean exactly the same. That is mine. So I will, when it comes time, support an amendment to change the phrase to "at least once every 10 years" with the understanding that the additional word does not change the meaning of the phrase at all. And if by making the amendment, we can move this ordinance forward, then I will.
Thanks, Greg. Mr. President, may I respond? Reluctant.
We've gone over this enough, Bill. We're going to
well,
talk about it again in our committee of the whole meeting.
He referenced the city attorney. I would like to ask the city attorney a question. And he has to get up again. Sorry, Mike. If we add the word so that it is at least every 10 years, does that also meet the intent of the ordinance?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sure. And that's all I was trying to do. I mean,
So either way,
Shannon's here, and I think everybody wants to have it respect what the committee recommended.
there's no dispute of
I
that.
would agree with Greg that either way works, and I'm for whatever is the most clear.
And thank you, Mike. And so the city attorney has no problem with either way of doing it. And since it is going before the voters and not other lawyers and not the Supreme Court, we want to make sure that the voters understand the nuance that Greg brought out. And by adding that word, that makes it clearer for the voter to give us the benefit of their desire. And thank you for that extra time, Mike.
Thank you.
Legislation for third reading. Ordinance number 8678 for third reading. Ordinance adopting the City of Bowling Green Job Creation and Retention Program.
Mr. President,
Mr. Robinette.
I move to adopt ordinance 8678.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I would like to just make a comment, ask a question. I value our businesses in Bowling Green. We need business. We need industry. We need to make plans so that in the long run, businesses and industry want to come to Bowling Green. There's lots of reasons to come here. There's natural resources. There's proximity to infrastructure. So I wonder why it is we need to offer incentives to companies to come here. I think the simple answer is that everybody else does it. And we can't just walk away from that. That seems to be the way things are just done. I would have a question because I've only known about this in our case for the time I've been on council. And anybody in the room that has information about this might like to share, but how long has this been going on? 10 years, 50 years? Has it just always been this way? The basic question is it always been such that cities have to, as part of their competition with other cities, offer either tax reductions or grants of money to help entice businesses come?
I need rollerblades or something. I don't know. I wrote the first one, I think, 32 years ago. So it's been going on at least that long. And yes, there is a little bit of, if everybody else is doing it, you kind of, it doesn't mean you have to do the same thing, but you have to, I have a different hat on now. It's probably more appropriate for Sue, but in our CDF experience at least, you don't have to have the exact same programs everybody else has, but you need to have things that are tailored toward people you're trying to attract here. I don't know if that totally answers your question. We don't do everything that cities around us do, but we also do some things here that no one else does, if that helps you.
Yeah, well, I've seen instances where cities go much further or states go very far, and that sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, and I think we've always, and tell me if I'm wrong, Sue, but I think we've always taken the attitude that we don't want people that want to come here and not pay anything. We're not desperate. We're fortunate that we're not, maybe, but we don't just have to give away the store. But there's a middle ground, and I think at least for the last couple decades we've been there. Wouldn't you agree? I don't know that we could point to anybody that's here and say they wouldn't have been here but for the incentives. But then again, if we didn't have any, we might not have ever got them to look at us. See what I mean?
Yep, I appreciate that.
That
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Any further discussion? Okay, would you please call the roll?
Robinette?
Yes.
Roland?
Yes.
Zanfordino?
Yes.
Osbacher?
Yes.
Gordon?
Yes.
Harold?
Yes.
Jeffers?
Yes.
The motion passes. Ordinance 8678 is adopted.
Ordinance number 8679 for third reading, ordinance amending the zoning district map of the city of Bowling Green, Ohio for a property generally known as 500 6th Street from M1 light industrial to R3 multiple family residential.
Mr. President,
Mr. Robinette.
I move to table ordinance 8679 until June 18th so that we can conduct the required public hearing scheduled 6:45 on that night.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, would you please call the roll?
Roland?
Yes.
Zanfordino?
Yes.
Osbacher?
Yes.
Gordon?
Yes.
Harold?
Yes.
Jeffers?
Yes.
Robinette?
Yes.
The motion passes. Ordinance 8679 is tabled.
Ordinance number 8683 for third reading, ordinance amending and adopting Chapter 113 of the codified ordinances of the city of Bowling Green, Ohio regarding mobile food vendors, peddlers, solicitors, and itinerant merchants, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President,
Mr. Harold.
I move that we amend ordinance 8683 by substitution.
Is that adding the amendments we've already discussed, or do you have some?
No,
Good.
it's, what, you think I'd add?
I just wanted to make sure.
Sandy, I distributed.
This is what was distributed.
Yes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Just that, as Sandy alluded, there were a few amendments as a result of the council committee as a whole meeting last time. And so we had that right before our council meeting, and that gave time for the city attorney to incorporate them. And so that's a result of what was agreed on.
On May 21st.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, 5 minutes ago. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, would you please call the roll?
Zanfordino?
Yes.
Osbacher?
Yes.
Gordon?
Yes.
Harold?
Yes.
Jeffers?
Yes.
Robinette?
Yes.
Roland?
Yes.
The motion passes. Ordinance 8683 is amended by substitution.
Mr. President,
Mr. Harold.
I move that we adopt the emergency clause for amended ordinance 8683.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, would you please call the roll?
Osbacher?
Yes.
Gordon?
Yes.
Harold?
Yes.
Jeffers?
Yes.
Robinette?
Yes.
Roland?
Yes.
Zanfordino?
Yes.
The motion passes. The emergency clause is adopted for ordinance 8683.
Mr. President,
Mr. Harold.
I neglected to state the reason why we had the emergency clause, and that was to expedite things. We're getting into good weather and want to get things moving as quickly as possible. Mr. President, I move that we adopt ordinance 8683 as amended.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Mr. Harold.
I wanted to wholeheartedly thank and commend the committee members, Sandy and John, for going through multiple meetings and a lot of work. They put a lot of work into this, and as did others, some food vendors coming down to like over half the meetings, and the administration and city attorney, as well as council, since we had a committee meeting as a whole. So there were a lot of people that stepped up and assisted in getting this through the process. And I wanted to acknowledge and thank each person for doing that.
Thank you, Bill. Is there further discussion? Okay, would you please call the roll?
Gordon,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Jeffers.
Yes.
Robinette,
Yes.
Roland,
Yes.
Zanfordino,
Yes.
Osbacher.
Yes. Motion passes. Ordinance 8683 is adopted. That completes the items on our agenda this evening. Is there any further business to come before council? Seeing none, is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Say something about Gene.
That's how it feels.
Thanks again, Gene.